right, let's call the committee of the whole meeting to order. Councilman Porter is present, Councilwoman Wallman, and Vice Mayor Losner. 2A is the May 15, 2007 minutes. The motion for approval?
Move approval.
Moved by Councilman Porter. Is there a second? Second by Councilwoman Wallman. Any comments on the minutes? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item 2B is a discussion on the potential residential building moratorium. Now, this is an item that Councilwoman Bell brought forth at the last council meeting, and I don't think that any of us had an opportunity to respond to it. So I would suggest that we don't take any official action, but I would like to get, council's input on it, and probably put it back on the agenda for the next committee of the whole agenda when Ms. Bell is present. Ms. Laporte, any initial comments on it?
Well, Mayor, yes, sir. There's legalities. I know that we've done a Southwest moratorium with a specific concern involved. We did a Northwest moratorium with a specific concern involved. And you basically got the west side of town. Until just recently, the west side has been shut off from anything except single family. Southwest has had nothing going on. Northwest has had nothing as far as anything except single family. But what, Jane, I'm looking at you because at this particular point, what would be the rationale? What would be the legal reason why we would say we need to go into a moratorium situation?
Yes, if you recall, we were asked to look at that specific question and come back to you tonight with that answer. And we've had an opportunity to look at and analyze, review the issues and analyze those in regards to the rational nexus or the basis upon which you would be able to impose a moratorium. And we've worked with your staff in looking at those issues, and we feel that you would be able to do one. You would be able to do one. The specific request that Mrs. Bell had posed was whether or not it was townhouses and multifamily, excluding commercial development, industrial, and detached single family. We've looked at the issue, and because you have a number of issues dealing with your public infrastructure system right now, because you have things like the Joint Land Use Study out there, you have the Watershed Committee, there are a number of planning and regulatory initiatives that do affect the city that you could base your decision to impose a moratorium on. You need time to look at and re-examine your land development regulations and see if there's a land development scheme that you want to come up with that you haven't contemplated or that you need to contemplate now that you have such a high rate of growth. So it's not one specific thing. It would be a number of things that you would culminate together to sort of put the brakes on, maintain the status quo in order to give you time to look at and properly examine all of those issues in the context of the fast rate of growth that's been happening with the townhouse and with the multifamily, or pretty much anything over 6 units to the acre. So it's not one specific thing, but it would be a combination of all those things together that would allow you to move forward with the moratorium.
Based on lack of infrastructure.
Well, that would be a key component, but you would need to look at your transportation master plan, even though you've already adopted that, I think, the end of 2005. But there are certain short-term goals and long-term goals in there that you would need to look at. Maybe you need to re-examine, switch those goals around, add some goals, look at what roadways or facilities or infrastructure problems you might need to address more quickly than others, or that you didn't contemplate the first time you adopted it, and how that relates more specifically to your capital improvements element. I mean, you now under state law mandate that every year you have to update your capital improvements plan. So you would need to look at that in the context of maybe there are certain funded roadway improvements that you need to address more quickly or look at that you want to put on your 5-year plan to contemplate and take into consideration all that new development. So that would be one key component, yes.
Yeah, I think the issue here is that that the legal analysis that we've done, which ultimately will be included in findings if you decide to impose a moratorium, is that the issues that we've heard raised could form a basis for a legal moratorium. Whether you want to do that or not, that's another issue, but we've satisfied ourselves based upon the issues that we've heard discussed here, that we've discussed with you privately, and that we've discussed with staff, that there is sufficient basis to institute a moratorium if you want to, and that we could defend it. I mean, that's the bottom of it. Whether you want to do it or not, that's up to you, but the first task was, are there issues that could justify it legally under the case law, and we feel like there could be.
Okay, so the issue is, will that pertain to the PUDs that have the mix of products already in, that have already been approved, that are maybe not built yet? Does that include anything that may be in the existing DRI with Keys Gate, as far as they already, because there's a certain amount of vested rights out there as far as the ownership and already approved townhome developments? Would it only affect anything that would be new possibly?
Well, that's a policy decision that you all would have to determine and make, and that is, where do you want to draw the line in the sand? Who do you want to include and not include? There are certainly projects that are in the pipeline that Ms. Kamali and her staff have analyzed and are able to give you that information, where they are in the process, who've submitted. You do have a couple of PUDs that have been they haven't even made it to master plan yet. They have sketch plan approval, but they're in the process. They've been in the process for quite some time. Do you want to include those or not include those? I mean, that's strictly a policy decision that you would have to make. But if you all decide to go with the moratorium and impose it, then we would need to talk more specifically about who do you want to exempt, or what projects do you want to exempt, and what the scope of that would be. I think we pretty much have the issues down in the scope that you'd want to limit it to the higher density residential type of development, and let the detached single family, the low density single family, the industrial, the commercial, those, and a few other things like we've done before in the Northwest moratorium, and a couple of the previous moratoriums in the past. We would include that in the ordinance and exempt those things, and that would be the scope of the ordinance. But there's a lot of projects that are in the pipeline that you would need to make a determination on where you want to draw the line. Is it site plan? Is it tentative plat approval? Is it those projects who have already been submitted and have had a DRC review at this point and are pending P&Z, projects that have gone to P&Z? So that would be a discussion and direction from you that we would have to look at.
So the first question is whether the council wants to move forward with this at all. And then once you just make that decision, then we can help you sort of craft it narrowly to deal with the issues you want to deal with.
Let me just finish with one, and I appreciate the mayor you asked me, but you have to be able to convince me that none of the others that you don't exempt don't have a negative effect on our infrastructure. How do you look at me and say a multifamily, anything above 6, has a more negative impact on infrastructure than anything below 6, or anything that's commercial, or anything that's industrial? I understand there's a concern about the services. I understand there's a concern about townhomes. I need to know, there's a lot of them that are vested that came through the PUD processes. There's a lot out there that's not built yet. There's a lot of vacants out there. But we've already gotten the impact fees. We've already gotten the park fees. We've already got the police fees. We've already got those monies in hand now to go out and do effectively proceed forward with addressing the infrastructure needs. So it's, it's a catch-22 that we find ourselves in. So, Mayor, thank you.
Let me make a quick comment, then I'll give the floor to the Vice Mayor. Just before I forget this, Mr. Porter chairs the Infrastructure Committee, and he can correct me if we're going to wait for the infrastructure to catch up with the growth and development. My concern would be how long would the moratorium be in place, because I will tell you to expand Campbell or Farm Life Road or some of the others in the pipeline will take years, not months. And I think Councilwoman Bell alluded to about 8 months to a year on the moratorium. I'm saying that's not going to accomplish anything. because it's going to take many, many years to expand the roads and the other infrastructure in the city of Homestead. What would be the purpose? You understand what I'm saying? We have a master plan for parks, we have a master plan for road improvement, we have a master plan for schools. It's a matter of implementing those plans. Now, if you're going to delay any construction for a period of 8 months to a year, it solves absolutely nothing. My second point is, and Mr. Porter alluded to it, the Southwest community is in dire need of development. I could not support a moratorium citywide, and we got areas in this community that need development. And certainly with the Northwest Master Plan, I think what we've done there have put the roadmap of what we want there and how that should progress. So it will have to be selective, and in certain areas a moratorium, but then I see at the end of the day we're not going to accomplish anything, because it could take years for Mr. Porter to bring those road improvement into the city. It's going to take years to get the schools up. So we're going to be talking about a 5-year moratorium, a 3-year moratorium, or what? But 8 months, 12 months is not going to solve the problem. Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. While it's perhaps very politically appealing and maybe advantageous to start just throwing out the word moratorium, even I recognize that, for a lot of the reasons that have been enunciated here tonight, that's probably not the best idea. It's been suggested to me that perhaps we need to look at ourselves as the hole in the donut, that even if we did put an absolute moratorium in place, I don't see any slowdown in Florida City at 15, 20, and 25 units per acre, nor out into the unincorporated areas to the northeast of us, where certainly those densities and the traffic generated and the school's impact generated by those developments over which we have no control continue to impact us, and we could very well be faced with, at some point in the future, those projects eroding or completely utilizing concurrency that projects within the city of Homestead would need. Now, where I kind of like to go and expend some staff time to get a handle on, and I'm comfortable that if our attorneys tell us that if we chose to, we could put a blanket moratorium at any point in the process. And that's some of the things I've been hitting on recently, that at what point do you become vested, and what does it mean in terms of concurrency, allocation, and vesting of land use. And I'd kind of like to have a handle on what's approved and at what level, and what does that really mean in terms of just vacant residential property. I think the reality is there's not a whole heck of a lot of that left on a large-scale basis that already doesn't have some point of approval. But I think what I'd like to take a look at is, Ms. Waldman, you'll recall that, when we came on council, one of the big issues was that this community was 70% rental/multifamily and 30% single-family detached. And for a period of time, those ratios were swapping. There's some perception, and I don't know if it's the reality, but with the proliferation of townhouses, which seem to sell, up to about a year ago, seemed to sell as quickly as they could be built, that our ratios of what maybe our community, we would like our community to be, may be in flux. And I'd kind of like to take a look at that and get a handle on what those ratios are, and perhaps react and steer development of a type of housing versus a blanket. I think the ratios and the diversity of the kinds of housing are just as important as the schools and the transportation issues. But the reality is what is it really? If you'll have everybody lined up here at that podium that I'm vested, that I've spent X $100,000 for site planning and engineering and approvals, and spent a whole lot of money to buy the property, and those interest payments accrue. I just don't envision an open-ended, or and the mayor's very clearly demonstrated that a relatively short-term moratorium is not going to to solve the schools and transportation issues. And certainly, I could see, our firm having a whole new wing of litigation defending this against those who are so far away in the process. And if you carve those out, what does it really leave us with? Perhaps we need to go back and look at, what does 6 mean? Does 6 mean 6 per gross acre or 6 per buildable acre? And that would be where my focus would tend to be, is what are the ratios, what's been approved, the ratios of multifamily, okay, how many condos, how many townhouses, how many detached single family, where are we in that process, and what are those ratios, and what's really left. And then based upon that, consider some amendment to our land use regulations if we've seen that really the definition of 6, 8, or 10 or whatever it is too dense. We go back and revisit how we define the numbers of units per acre. That's where I'd kind of like to go, and I would think that some of those numbers and the maps and the aerial photos would take a single issue meeting of at least a couple of hours to get a handle on all of that before we even decide which branch of a potential moratorium, if any, to begin looking at. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Vice Mayor. Ms. Wallman?
Well, I think most everything has been said, but I agree with my colleagues tonight. I couldn't support an overall moratorium. I just don't think it's fair. I know I've said here for years and many times wanted to vote no on projects, more than many times, and was told that I couldn't, pretty much, that we would be engaged in a lawsuit. So now, we do know, and I think this all came about when there was a, I think, 4-3 vote for some townhouses that were scheduled to be built. But it was soon enough in the process that I felt comfortable enough voting no on that. But many of these builders, they're much farther along, and I'm telling you, they're ready to go, and and they're making it attractive for buyers to buy their properties. I showed property all day Thursday, all day Friday, all day Saturday, had 4 open houses on Sunday, and I can tell you that there are buyers out there. They are, and I think that it's because of the initiative to lower the taxes. They've been holding back. They're coming out again. I noticed that many of the developers were having some real sales this past weekend, and they were busy. I think it would, I remember when Mr. Rosner alluded to when we took office, we were begging people to come and build in our city. We had nobody to build in our city. So, and Mr. Porter, I think you've done a fine job with roads. We just have to work with the state. It takes time. But 8 months to a year isn't going to change anything. And it not only isn't not going to change anything, it's not going to change what we already have in the pipelines. And do you agree with me or no? Do you agree with me as far as what's in the pipeline already? That's what you can't say no when they've already started building.
We have done some preliminary study as far as the number of residential houses that they are in the pipeline, and the ones that they have a sketch plan approval. But if you prefer, we can have everything in a more formal way to present to you versus talking to you right now in this meeting.
And I've always said, and I'll continue to say, that not everybody can afford a $350,000 home. There is a place, and many of you in this audience tonight are in a townhouse or in a condo because that's what you can afford. And so we have to be open-minded. It can't just be all single-family homes. So, and I realize, I know what everybody's going to say, well, we've got all these townhouses being built and all these things that are out there, but obviously, people are buying them. So I just couldn't support that. The southwest section needs growth so badly. I think the northwest is ready now again after the master plan. I think they're ready to start their development. I think you just have to look at things piece by piece by piece. And that's what I'm going to continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you. And my final comment is this. You know, when we look at it, we have to look at the impact on the business side. And I know, again, I'll use the Vice Mayor and Councilman Hodge was out there, and Sherry was out there in Las Vegas convincing folks to come to Homestead, and we gave them numbers and projections in terms of population, and if you want these businesses to come in Homestead, like Lowe's and others, they've looked at our numbers, they projected out 5-10 years and said Homestead will be at this level 10 years from now. I'm willing to take that risk to come and settle a business in Homestead. And I think we send mixed messages. We have to look at both sides of this. Slowing down the growth will impact the business side of Homestead. It will deny folks that have an interest of coming in to come in because of it. So the amenities we have, the theater and others, is a result of our growth and our projected growth. So we just need to work together. I think many of them that's in the pipeline may not build immediately because of the slowdown of the market. But they have the right to do it. We've given them an authorization, but I think if you look at it, you see the slowness in the development here at Homestead. Not only Homestead, other places too. So I think we just need to give Mr. Porter and his committee all the support that we can give them to make sure that we continue with the infrastructure. We're working on the schools. If you have not read the most recent letter from the superintendent, I hope you do read it, because he did respond back to me as he said he would with some very specific plans for schools in Homestead. So I think the Vice Mayor brought up a very good point. Let's take a comprehensive look at this and see where we may want to put some brakes on some things if possible, but not to send mixed messages to the business community out there, because their survival is based on numbers. I'm in business. I tell you, our survival is based on numbers. We wouldn't be there if you didn't tell us you're going to have those numbers. So we have to look at the impact on both sides. Any other comments?
Let me just close with this, Mayor. A couple of meetings ago, I told the council we were going to have a very comprehensive informational package put out on all the transportation initiatives, and we've had a series of meetings to produce that, and obviously it's not ready as of right now, but it is a substantial amount of positive impact that you're going to see on the streets over the next period of years. If you know, for the 328th Street project, the Lucy Street project, Phase 1 is projected for a 1-year build-out. That's just the middle. The second phase that goes from there to US 1 is 560 some odd days. So there is a substantial amount of time that it takes for these projects to be built. So I think we'll all be very pleased when we get a chance to see the actual numbers that are going to be applied to the streets over the next period of years. It's a substantial number. The other thing that I think the Vice Mayor had alluded to this earlier, where we need to look at as we go forward, we talk about these little 5 and 10 acre tracts are going to be available for non-PUD buildings. And you talk about everything entering and exiting on one road through one entrance feature. That's what you were talking about the other day, wasn't it, Vice Mayor?
Exactly.
So, see, that's one of the things that
we're into the small, compartmentalized.
Where we've been, where the luxury we've had is the PUDs have come in and they've done hundreds of acres at a time. The intermobility inside their systems, they connect more than one way in and one way out. Now I think we're faced with a challenge of a series of these smaller properties coming in. No rear exit, no side exit, only a front exit, and that's where you get into the kindleization problem that we need to, as planners and as we develop in these smaller tracts. That's really, I think, one of the issues that we've got to talk about as a mobility problem. So I appreciate everybody's consideration just long enough, because I want us to be able to put these factual points out about the transportation. That this is not a pie in the sky. These are real hard numbers that we've already, the money's there. It's just the process of getting it going through all the agencies. So I appreciate your consideration. It'll be done in the next week.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. I know there's some developers. Are there any comments from any of you all? very briefly, and we need to move on.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Angel Guerrero, 2214 Northeast 41st Ave. One is I'm just very happy that at least something like that has come to the table, considering a moratorium, and at least it's come to light that there is problems that we're having. And just to throw out a quick statistic number, there's about a 46-month inventory of homes right now, and I'm sure anybody that pulls up the MLS will take a look at that. So I think maybe look at those numbers as well when you do that whole consensus. So you got about 4 years of inventory right now if not one new house is built. Something to consider.
Thank you, sir. Let's move on. Item 3, item 2C, and put that item back on for the next committee of the whole when Ms. Bell is here. Item 2C, Hazen and Sawyer Wastewater Treatment Plant Expansion, Phase 2.
Mr. Mayor and Council, it's the staff's recommendation that the City Council approved myself to proceed with Phase 2 of the Hazen and Sawyer proposal that will end an engineering design report for Phase 2 of our wastewater treatment plant. The goal is expanding the plant due to our growth. It currently is rated at and operates at 6 million gallons a day, and they want to expand that because of the growth to 10 million a day. 10 million gallons per day.
And you said it's currently at 6 million?
That's correct.
Is there a motion for approval?
I'll move it.
Moved by the Vice Mayor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Wallman.
Mayor, I just want to put on the record, I think at the end of the day, this facility needs to be someplace else. I think that down the future, we're going to be having all of this major development right across from the sewage treatment facility. And I know Mr. Ivy and I have had this conversation. I don't know how we achieve this, but that's going to be the future multi-million-dollar piece of property that the city owns with a non-conforming use sitting on top of it. And I don't know what the way is out right now, but unfortunately, we're passing a problem to someone else. It will be a problem to someone else.
We did some initial looking at that, and because that's a good point. The cost of moving, rebuilding somewhere else and where there's available property, probably out under the ACUs somewhere that can't really is not good for anything else, would be a real expense. So, not that we can't keep looking at it, but we're talking money, millions.
No, I understand. Yeah. It is money, and when you look at the area that it sits in,
absolutely,
it used to be the edge of town. It's not the edge of town.
You're right.
The Alger development is going to be a mini Dayland, sandwiched right up next to the wastewater treatment facility.
Yeah, we had also, in lieu of maybe just financially not being able to do it at the end of the day, we looked at maybe some improvements we make that would cut down some of what might be unpleasant to be next to the treatment plant, and the odors and the covers for the tanks open. So we are looking at other ways in the event, and we haven't given up on that, but all indications it's big bucks. So, like you said, we may be passing this on to somebody else. You're right.
You know, Mr. Manager, at one time we kind of round table discussed about maybe doing a separate location building instead of expanding at the existing facility. Try to locate and make an expansion somewhere else, kind of like a redundancy scenario where you build away from each other. And I know that again, I don't know if it's achievable or not, but then as you had an opportunity, you have one up and running, and then if you had an opportunity to do something with that very valuable piece of property, there's your money to do your move, not your initial move, but your secondary move. Because you could look at the solid waste, the garbage trucks. Again, you know, that's another very, very valuable area next to. You could look at the majority of what we're doing now on 6th Ave as something that can be relocated to a heavier, intense use area, and then that would be able to go back into a more moderate use or a more like use as you're going to see the development around it.
It's definitely located in an area that's, you know, no doubt will be nicely built in the not too distant future.
But I know,
correct.
But I know you need the capacity now. I know it's more expensive to send the capacity to the county than it is to do this. I just, on the record, for some, unknown reason, it'd be nice if we could find something to make it easier for the future.
Understand.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Mr. Vice Mayor?
In that regard, Kurt, just for sake of argument, that's a pretty large piece of property upon which the current wastewater treatment plant is situated. How many acres are there, and do we have any analysis of how much overkill that is, and what would we really need to meet our future needs?
Well, actually, I don't know, Robert, if you know the acreage there right offhand. I can get that for you, but we actually do a pretty good job of using the area there and the anticipated growth of the city. That kind of property in that area we have there is needed. Part of what we have is at the a kind of $1 a year type thing from the county, and that's a motor pool area in that back area where the old racetrack was. If there's interest, again, we'll come in and try to put something harder numbers together, other than what Mr. Porter was talking about, because we've been looking at that, and it's interesting accomplishment to do.
Yeah, clearly it doesn't happen overnight, but what we start talking about tonight may be completed 10 to 15 years hence.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely, I agree, it's located in an area that's probably not going to be the best suited for all of those activities, quite frankly. So, the only thing I can think of is the Acus area out there that would have limited development potential anyway. So.
Yeah, and at this point there is no contract on what the city owns under the AQs, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
I just want to, can I just say, we own the property where Parks and Rec sets and purchasing and on 6th Avenue.
I think the purchasing and solid waste and where the treatment plant is, we do. There is an area there that we get from the county, and I'll get that info for you.
Because that entire block, if Alger's project does go forward, that entire block is going to be commercial. And that would be very valuable to us.
Just the redevelopment to the south and east of that, where whole corners have been knocked down and rehabbed, and warehouses have been emptied, and all new facade work that's pretty substantial barometer of what the need is.
Well, excuse me, Mayor, if you take into consideration what the Alger development alone is probably going to produce, the preliminary numbers require 6 laning from the turnpike to US 1. That's how significant that is, and 4 laning of what is 6th Avenue now. So, I mean, it is a corridor that is going to be a real magnet for high quality development, retail, commercial development there. So I agree with you, Mr. Reisman, it is a long-term goal, but if we don't try to map out some sort of solution to knowing at the end of the day, we need to be able to get off of that. It's kind of like what you're dealing with right now with City Hall. It's too valuable for us to be sitting here. And I think in the future, that's going to be too valuable for us to be sitting there.
I think you're going to be right.
And if, let's take advantage of that land under the ACUS while it's still there.
If you get it back.
It's not gone yet.
It's signed yet, so as far as I'm concerned.
The ACUS is not worth much.
That's what they told us.
Maybe they'll pass the table.
All right, have you voted on that, Chief? All right, thank you.
Did we vote on that?
She said we did.
Vice Mayor Losner and Councilwoman Wellman.
We just motion.
She made the motion. Did we vote?
Oh, I'm sorry, no.
Okay. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Good. Under the Finance Committee, T.R. Jones and Company, Commercial Liability and Property Coverage, Tab 3.
Yes, Mayor and Council, it's staff recommendation that Council approve that we continue services of T.R. Jones and Company for our insurance needs to market our account and present the city with proposals of general liability, property, and health insurance needs. And let me explain a little bit about that. We've been with T.R. Jones since the 1970s as our insurance broker. And, sometimes as we go through here, you hear the comments that maybe we should look elsewhere, do something, and is that cozy or too cozy, or, those kinds of comments about being that long with one entity working your insurance. We looked at this, and we came up after looking at it pretty hard with the recommendation that we stay with T.R. Jones. First of all, there's nobody that knows more about our property than that organization. Mr. Jones has done an extremely good job for us through the years. We have no complaints. Actually, his availability to come and look at properties after events, hurricane events, those kinds of things, the people he has on, that his staff that has known our property situation has been excellent. I mean, it really is not broken, I guess, is one of the things we want to say. Secondly, just to answer, queries about, well, is that good business not to, try to look elsewhere. We do have a...
Ooh. What was that?
It has nothing to do with what I'm saying here. I'm telling the truth.
How good is your medical insurance? That just scared me to death.
I'm telling the truth. But we do have... we need a new city hall, too.
I can see Chief Bowman is coming.
But we do hire, just so you know, that for several years we've had a consulting firm, Cyber Insurance Consultants, that review our policy choices that are given to us by T.R. Jones to make sure they meet market standards, and everything has always been satisfactory. So we'd like to put that, if we could, to rest, because if we're given a different opinion from Mayor and Council, then we're going to have to start now with bids and RFPs and things.
But T.R. Jones is local.
Yes.
We've had a partnership for many, many years. The service is excellent. The availability is excellent. So I see no reason to move any further. I think we need to move forward with this and continue that lasting relationship.
I'll move it, Mayor, because I agree totally.
I'll second.
Been properly moved by Mr. Porter, second by Ms. Walker. Any comments from any council member? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 4A, Ms. Wallman.
Yes, I think I'm just going to go ahead and turn this over to the manager, because it's a little complicated.
We're recommending that we be authorized to accept the FERDAP grant for the James Archer Smith Park. It's a $200,000 grant. We have to match with $200,000, which we already have budgeted with impact fees. The development of what we have planned for this park's in keeping with our Parks Master Plan, and need your approval for me to accept that grant.
I'll move it.
Thank you.
Moved by the Vice Mayor, second by Ms. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay, Mayor, go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right, moved by Vice Mayor, second by Councilman Porter. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. The next one, I'm going to go ahead and turn that over as well. This is concerning our beautification project and our US 1 sprinkler system. Manager?
Mayor and Council, with its staff's recommendation, with an explanation that the city manager be able to authorize us to execute the attached agreement to accept this grant award from FDOT for $250,000 with a $250,000 match for landscaping and irrigation of the US 1 corridor between 304th Street and 328th Street. So US 1 throughout the entire city. The concern here, well, the thought here was in beautification, that we can provide irrigation and replanting on that important corridor where everybody comes through, or a large number of people come through Homestead. We have it on a good portion of Chrome Avenue as we speak, especially historic area. We also, the caveat would be, is that we put this together. It's going to require maintenance with the irrigation. It's going to keep things green and lush, and we'll be able to do that where we haven't been able to do that before. Now, with the impending tax issues that are coming up, we are going to, one, we're spending city money for the match, general fund money for the match. Secondly, there will be a maintenance issue with it. We do have an existing $25,000 a year contract with the state of Florida. Of course, it never covers, the number of cuts that they would do versus what we do to keep it looking nice. It's a key, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, the corridor into and through the city. That's why it was selected to beautify, and I think that it's important that we have we do have the irrigation there. But I will say that we are paying $250 match out of our general fund that we would not otherwise have to pay if we don't accept the grant. We've got to know, however, by the end of the month, because their budget year starts July 1st at the state, so we need to sign this agreement before the end of the month.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Vice Mayor and Mr. Porter.
Hey!
Who's in charge?
At least he knows all our names tonight. Couple of things. Kurt, was the $250 budgeted this year in anticipation of the award?
Yes.
And do we have any estimates on our ongoing portion of the cost of maintenance above and beyond the 25?
I would assume it's going to be about what we do now, but if you'll notice, if you'll remember, when the winter comes, it gets pretty brown.
Yeah.
Further down, and the foliage.
Clearly, if you're going to spend the money to plant something, you need to be able to irrigate it.
And so I think the cuttings will probably be close to the same amount. Kirk, do you have any kind of comment on that? But I think we'll be cutting a lusher looking area.
Well, we reimburse from the state of Florida $25,000 a year for the maintenance of Chrome Avenue and US 1, but it costs us close to $70,000 a year to maintain those.
Currently. Beyond the 25?
No, 70 total.
70 total, so we're spending 45.
Yeah.
I guess so with this replanting, we've got the opportunity, though, if it's going to be a wholesale replacement, we've got the opportunity, and one of the comments I was going to have before Kurt threw the cold blanket on the monetary issues, the wet blanket on the monetary issues, was certainly I would like us to be able to be involved so that we don't get the same old, shade trees, flowering trees, but it would seem to me that we would have perhaps the opportunity to install the foliage that would be less labor intensive, that maybe you don't have grass to cut, that you've got ground cover that doesn't necessarily need that level of maintenance. I think aesthetics are a very important part of a community, and I'd hate to walk away from this opportunity.
Well, I agree. That's why we recommended it, but I wanted to put that caveat because the question does beg itself sometimes there, and I don't want to say, well, why didn't you think of that then?
Certainly environmentalists will tell you, don't plant grass. That's the worst thing you can do. You plant some flowering ground cover that draws the butterflies and all that. It looks good, too. I don't mean to sound facetious, but there may be ways just with what's installed to cut those, or to at least maintain them.
We've had some preliminary discussions with a consultant on this job, and it's our intent to come back with 2 or 3 landscaping schemes for you to review and approve. It might be the start of a citywide landscaping scheme for the city. So just like the street signs, just like the decorative lighting, when you see this landscaping theme, you're in the city of Homestead.
Yeah. So exactly. I know I've talked to Mr. Stouts about the coming year, and we're going to look at some of the CRA corridors with lighting and landscaping and the irrigations already there. And exactly, there's the look and the feel that I think is important. Has it been moved?
No. Mr. Porter wanted to say.
I'm sorry.
I just had a real quick question. I look at Robert and see, make sure you have your police uniform on. You can't talk about public works. You're a policeman now. We put irrigation in the middle of Campbell Drive and tore the road to smithereens. When we put that irrigation in on Campbell, we've destroyed the road, and it's never been right since. Now, how are we going to put irrigation in the center of US 1 and not destroy US 1?
This will be jack and bore underneath. We won't cut anything.
That's wonderful. The second question is, and I know people mow down a lot of the trees when they have accidents. There's replacement monies in this? Is it, as these things get knocked down, the trees and the...
This budget amount.
So this is the initial, and then anything that gets destroyed or damaged due to accidents, basically we would have to come back in out of some other fund.
And we're doing that now.
Yeah, there are ongoing forestry grants to do that.
No,
Just make it more lush for them to drive through.
Well, I agree totally. I think it needs to be as beautiful as it possibly can, but at the end of the day, they do have a lot of accidents, and they do take out a good bit of the foliage. It's like you have a little tree in the middle of all these nice big trees because it keeps getting taken out. But I think we need to do something on it.
Well, I think as it goes now, we've been in a situation where when you leave the county and you come into Homestead, there's a difference.
You're there.
And when you leave Homestead and going through Florida City and on down, there's a difference. So,
If I could just say something before we entertain a motion from Vice Mayor. We've been very limited as to what we can plant
Because of the irrigation.
because of the irrigation. And that's why, you see, different things throughout the year, because we have to plant things just because it's rainy season or just because it's dry season. So I think that's a very important point to make, and that will enable us to do ground covers. That will enable us to do more native plants.
also, I just, in reference to Mr. Porter, we do, when we do the accidents, try to get recover from the insurance of if the people have it.
Right.
Recover insurance.
So,
There, just throw that out there to repair what's damaged.
so do I have a motion?
Yes, I'll move it.
Second.
All right. I'm sorry, Sheila, I looked over there and you weren't in that chair. Motion made by Vice Mayor and seconded by Councilman Porter. Any further discussion, Mayor? Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
The last item is the resolution amending rules and regulations related to the electric service concerning trimming of vegetation.
Mr. Mayor and Council, it's staff's recommendation to approve the attached resolution that changes the rules and regulations of the Homestead Energy Services concerning trimming of vegetation. What exists now, that we passed an ordinance in which we are requiring homeowners and businesses who plant vegetation that go up and interfere with the electric utility lines to be responsible for cutting that vegetation. However, that current ordinance does not cover properties outside the city. And after consulting with our attorneys, we've been advised that we can enforce that same rule in our electric service area outside the city. So we are changing or amending this to bring in that element of our service area.
I'll move that, Mayor.
Been properly moved by Mr. Porter, second by the Vice Mayor. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's all on the agenda this evening. Any business for the committee to hold, Mr. Vice Mayor?
None, thank you.
Ms. Roman?
No, sir.
Mr. Porter?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Manager?
None, Mayor.
Mr. Attorney? Well, thank you all very much for coming. The meeting is adjourned.
I get in this building and I start coughing.
They didn't include it, they screwed up on their budget, what they did, right?
All these papers.